What is going on, guys? What is going on, 27 Squad? Welcome back in to another video. And today we are going to be talking about the 15 undrafted free agents that the New York Giants signed. This is up to date right now, 15. There could be more coming around. There's a lot of things that I noticed about this regime that I haven't noticed in other regimes for the New York Giants. We'll get right into it, but let's roll that intro. Alright, as always, guys, if you guys enjoy this content, make sure you guys hit that like button and subscribe for content just like this. Like I said, today we're talking about the 15 undrafted free agents that the New York Giants signed. Now, this is a lot of free agents that the New York Giants signed, and we had a lot of tryout players too. Like, this is something that maybe is more... It's making more news now because it's Joe Schoen's new regime. But I remember in prior regimes, like in Pat Shurmur's and Tom Coughlin's, there wasn't a lot of tryout guys. Like guys that just straight up tried out for the team and try to see if they could make the undrafted list. I mean, usually the undrafted list would come out a couple of days after the actual NFL draft. And then we have a couple of guys that we're working out as undrafted free agents that we signed and see if they make the roster or not. But now the Giants are having a whole tryout list of like 80 something players, and then a couple of them are actually being signed as actual undrafted free agents. And I like it. We're going to talk about the top 15 guys. Now, they keep signing guys over and over again, so there may be more guys signed after this. So we'll just see what happens. I'll try to cover them as much as I can. But this is just right on the top 15 guys right now. Now, if you look at this list, I'm going to pop the list up right now. If you look at this list, you notice that there's not one wide receiver on this list. The Giants got Wan'Dale Robinson in as a draft pick, as their second round pick, but the Giants have not, like, they have a couple of tryout wide receivers, okay? Of course, they're going to have some tryout wide receivers, but they have not signed one undrafted free agent receiver onto this list yet. Out of all 15 guys here that they listed here, there's not one wide receiver that is an undrafted wide receiver. So that's interesting to me. Usually I like to look at those wide receivers. You know, you got obviously Victor Cruz in the past. You got guys like Roger Lewis. You got a couple of guys that were undrafted free agents that made it to the roster and actually did some damage with this New York Giants team. So it's interesting now that this year we don't have one of those free agent guys that can possibly make this roster at the wide receiver position. We have a lot of defenders. We have tons of defenders. We have a couple of offensive weapons as well, and we'll get into them right now. Now, first up is tight end Austin Allen. He is 6'9". I said that right. 6'9", 255 pounds from Nebraska. This guy, to me, I mean, he's not the greatest blocker. He is kind of a blocker. He's actually pretty good in space, catches the ball pretty well. Now, I'm not going to go too deep on their negatives, right? Because if we talk too much about their negatives, you're going to find yourself, you know, getting tuned out on these players. You guys got to understand that these are undrafted guys, all right? They're not drafted for a reason. Unless the reason is, you know, injury concerns or off-the-field issues. These guys have a lot of problems as football players, but they're guys that are diamonds in the rough. So we're not going to dive too deep into their negatives. I'm going to talk about what they can do, rather what they can't do, because obviously if I talk about too much of their negatives, you guys are just not going to like them because they're undrafted guys. They have problems, okay? They're not the best football players out there, but they're guys, they're long shots, okay? They're long shots. So it's fair to, you know, make a fair assessment of them, but try to look at them in the best light possible. So Austin Allen, 6'9". I can understand why the Giants wanted him to sign him. Obviously, his size is a big factor in that. Same thing like in the NBA. If you're tall, they're going to try you out in the NBA. They're going to try you out in basketball. Same thing at the tight end position. You're tall. You got a good weight on you. They're going to try him out there. Now, he was pretty productive at Nebraska, and he was like the third tight end. I think this year, most recently, he had like 600 yards receiving or something like that. And I guess he got moved up to that number one spot, but he was like bottom of the depth chart most of the time in Nebraska. I like him a lot. Don't know if he's possibly going to make this roster. We'll see what happens. Maybe he may outshine a couple of guys out there. I know right now we have Bellinger, we have Ricky Seals-Jones. I'm not sure who's taking up that third spot right now for the Giants, but I don't think the Giants are probably going to keep more than 3 tight ends. Maybe they keep 4, who knows? But 3 is probably where I would go with that. So moving on to safety, Yusuf Corker, 6 foot, 197 out of Kentucky, a hard-hitting safety, not much of a ball hawk. I mean, has a couple of passes defense in his day at Kentucky. Only has like 3 career interceptions, I believe. But I like him. I like him a lot, especially that we need safety help. He may be a guy to just make the roster out of default and actually just provide some good special teams. Maybe he's a pretty decent tackler. He might just make this roster because we're so thin at safety. He may be a guy that, it's no surprise that the Giants signed him. He's one of the first undrafted free agent signings because we need a lot of help at that safety position. Moving on to defensive tackle Jabari Ellis, 6'3", 278, out of South Carolina. Now, he is the biggest 278 I've ever seen ever. I mean, he doesn't look 278. He's 6'3", 278. That's a decent size. He's not exactly a run stuffer, not exactly a pass rusher. He's kind of like in between. Doesn't really necessarily do anything particularly well, but he's there. He eats up blocks, and sometimes he slips past the guard or slips past the center and gets right to the ball carrier, whether that be the running back or the quarterback. I mean, I like his game. I don't know if he's possibly going to make this roster because the Giants are kind of knee deep in pass rushing defensive tackles, like 3-4 defensive ends. We're kind of already there with that. We really need nose tackles. That's what we really need right now. If you're a good nose tackle, you may make this roster. Especially that we drafted DJ Davidson as well, on top of having Justin Ellis here. I believe his name is Justin Ellis. We have Jabari Ellis and Justin Ellis. I'm getting confused, but we have Justin Ellis, we have DJ Davidson, and we have somebody else, David Moa, to the Boise State Bronco that we signed on last season. So there's that. So I don't know how if he's going to separate himself to try to make this roster. Not much of a nose tackle to me. He's only 278. So we'll see what happens with Jabari Ellis. Moving on to Darren Evans. So this is another cornerback out of LSU, Darren Evans. He is 6'3", 174. That is some good size. When you get undrafted free agents, what you really want to target is guys with good size, right? Good measurables, because you can try to coach them to be a better player, but you can't coach height, speed, weight. You can't coach that type of stuff. So, obviously I see why the Giants are interested in him. He's not a guy that got a lot of playing time. I remember watching Cordell Flott. When Cordell Flott, eventually got some sitting time, later on in the game. I know Darren Evans came out there and played. So Darren Evans really didn't get a lot of playing time. Cordell Flott was out there most of the game. Then Darren Evans would come in eventually. But, Darren Evans, I don't think anything much of him. He hasn't got a lot of playing time at LSU. I think they're just trying him out because he's a freaking 6'3" corner. So, there's that. But I don't think too much of Darren Evans. We'll see what happens with him. A guy I really like, though, out of FAU, Florida Atlantic University, defensive back or cornerback Zion Gilbert, 6'1", 182. Now, he's very productive at FAU. I could put his stats up there. He was pretty damn productive at FAU. I like him a lot. He's more like a zone corner to me. I don't think he's much of a man corner like what Wink Martindale runs, but he's a lanky corner, so maybe they can coach that in him. But he has some good instincts there. A pretty decent tackler. Tries his best to make his tackles. Tries his best in run support as well. But I like Zion Gilbert. Keep an eye on him as a potential, sort of sleeper guy there. Then we have H-back Jeremiah Hall. H-back, fullback, tight end, whatever you want to call him. He's an all-around guy. I like him a lot. I think he probably has, if the Giants even want to have a fullback on the roster, I don't know if Brian Dable really has a fullback in his scheme, because obviously he doesn't really do that. He didn't really do that in Buffalo. He doesn't really utilize his running backs that well. He doesn't run a power run scheme at all. So don't know if this Giants team will even have a fullback on the roster. But if we do have a fullback on the roster, I mean, he's the only one to really target, because he's the only one on the team that can handle the fullback responsibilities. But as a fullback, as a wing back, a guy to play the wing, and be that somewhat of a tight end, I think he's a perfect fit. I like Jeremiah Hall a lot. He's like an Eli Penny to us, right? Eli Penny would line up everywhere, as a tight end, fullback, sometimes even carry the ball as well. Same thing with Jeremiah Hall out of Oklahoma. He's 6'2", 248. I like him a lot. He probably has the best chance to make this roster. If the Giants want to, have a fullback, he's going to be the guy they just throw in right away. Hey, this is our fullback. So I like him a lot out of Oklahoma. Chris Hinton, defensive tackle out of Michigan, 6'4", 310 pounds. He's another guy that can really make this roster, but he would have to outshine himself from the rest because he's not necessarily a nose tackle, which is what we need. He's more of those pass rushing defensive tackles, 3-4 defensive end type guys. But the Giants already have plenty of those players, so I'm not quite sure how he would make this roster. Maybe he'll make the practice squad, but he's a guy that was pretty productive at Michigan. A lot of people like him. A lot of people have him as a potential guy to be signed by the Giants. But like I said, when it comes to, where he fits on this roster, how much space do we have at a set position, I'm not sure if he'll make the roster just based on how many guys we already have at that position. So he would have to beat out some of those guys in order to make the roster. So we'll see what happens with that. Next, we have an interesting player. This is a former wide receiver from Maine that transitioned to tight end, and that is Andre Miller, the 6'3", 220-pound now tight end out of Maine. I like him a lot. He may be a guy to make a roster over Austin Allen. I know Austin Allen has that size, right, 6'9", but Andre Miller has that mismatched nightmare type ability that I guess, dare I say, Evan Ingram kind of had. And he doesn't have the speed of Evan Ingram, doesn't have the athleticism of Evan Ingram, but Andre Miller was a legitimate wide receiver. He's 6'3", 220, and he was a burner at Maine. He wasn't necessarily a burner, but he would beat guys downfield and be the only one downfield and just catch 9 routes throughout the entire game. He's a big body wide receiver. He was a big target there at Maine. He had a couple of 90+ yard touchdowns. So he's that type of guy. And to put him at tight end, don't know how he would fit at tight end, obviously, but as a wide receiver, I like him. He's not really much of a route runner, which is why I probably think they moved him to tight end, maybe because he has a good catching ability, just not the best route runner at the NFL level. And so putting him at the tight end position, maybe that'll provide him, some better production there. But I like Andre Miller. I like him a lot. I think he has a better chance to make this roster than Austin Allen. Next up, we have Josh Rivas, 6'6", 317 pounds out of Kansas State. He's a people mover in the run game. I don't think he has the best technique. I see his hand slipping up a lot, but I don't want to get too much into negatives, of course. But like I said, I don't know. We have so much depth now at the offensive line position, which is crazy to say, that I don't think he's going to separate himself to try to make this roster. I think the guys that we have already are guys that are probably going to remain on this roster. I know it was fair for the Giants to just sign one to see if, what we can get out of him. He's not terrible by any stretch. I don't think he's a terrible guard at all. I think he would be kind of a sleeper, but and we've definitely had worse all undrafted free agent guards that were signed to this roster than him. I mean, he's not terrible, but like I said, we have a lot of depth at the guard position. Don't know if he's gonna make this roster. Maybe he makes a practice squad, and if a guy gets hurt, they boot him up to the active roster, but don't see him being signed. Next up, we have safety Trenton Thompson, 6'2", 200 pounds out of San Diego State. This guy's more of a special teams guy. If I really are trying to predict what the Giants want out of him, it's probably more of a special teams role, and I like it a lot. He has a couple of block kicks in his day, block punts. He's that type of player. Think of Corey Ballentine a couple years ago. He was that kind of player in special teams, but this guy is probably better of a special teams player. He's all right in as a safety. I mean, he has a couple of interceptions as a safety, a couple of pass defense, couple of highlight worthy tackles as a safety. But if I really trying to envision what the Giants want in Trenton Thompson, it's probably a special teams role, which he may, like I said, that safety position, the slots are open. It's anybody's position. He may make the roster, take a safety position, and just be a special teams player. The position he plays has a benefit for him because we don't have a lot of depth at that position. So he could make this roster, but just fill in a special teams role. Next up, we have defensive tackle Antonio Valentino, 6'3", 312 pounds, out of Florida. Now, I like his pass rush ability. He's 6'3", 312. You would think that he's just straight up like a nose tackle type guy. He has some pass rush ability too. He just gets moved around a lot more so than I would like. Like I said, we talk about these defensive tackles. They have to provide something better than the guys that we have already because we already have a lot of depth. So it's going to be hard for a guy like him to make the roster. I don't know if he's really going to fill up a practice squad role as well, but Valentino is not a terrible player coming out of Florida. They usually produce really good prospects. You guys know that, and we'll see what happens with him. I like his ability. You would like him to be more of a run stuffer. That's probably my biggest problem with Valentino. I really want him to be more of a run supporter. A guy that's stops the run a lot better than he does. He doesn't really do that. I really envision him as more of a pass rushing defensive tackle, which is weird to say because if you look at his frame and if you look at his measurables, 6'3", 312, you would think he's more of a run stuffer. But he's more of a pass rushing defensive tackle. He's able to slip past guards and so on and so forth. So he has to provide more in the run game for me to really say that he has a chance of making the roster. Now we're moving on to our final guys here. Running back Joe Corbin, 6 foot, 221 pounds, out of Florida State. Man, he has a potential of making this roster for real. Like, as far as our running backs go, we don't have great depth there. I mean, we have Saquon Barkley, Matt Breida, Antonio Williams, Gary Brightwell. I mean, it's anybody's game at the back end, right? Joe Corbin is the only running back that we have signed to this undrafted free agent list. So they're probably eyeing him to probably have some competition with Gary Brightwell and with Antonio Williams. We'll see more of that possibly in the preseason. But Joe Corbin, man, he has some breakaway speed. He has like big time play ability. He's able to read the holes very well. I think he could have been drafted. I don't know why he wasn't drafted. I think he could have been drafted. I don't think he's gonna get significant playing time or anything like that, but he may be a guy to sneak onto this roster over a guy like Antonio Williams or Gary Brightwell. We'll see what happens. I'm a Gary Brightwell guy, so I mean, I whoever wins the battle, whoever's the better player I want on this team, of course, but I like Gary Brightwell, okay, and a lot of people like Antonio Williams as well, so we'll see what happens with Corbin, but I like him. I like this guy out of Florida State. I think he has a big play ability, and so Florida State produces some running backs as well. So now this guy is definitely one of my favorites, and that is defensive end Tomon Fox, 6'3", 260 pounds, out of North Carolina. Definitely one of my favorite guys on this roster. He may make the roster because, of course, our edge rushing group is very front heavy, right? We have Kayvon, we have Aziz, we have Quincy Roche, but after that, it's anybody's game. I mean, we have Cam Brown here. I don't know if we still have Carter Coughlin. I don't know if we still have Raymond Johnson. I don't even know if Raymond Johnson is a linebacker, but we still have maybe O'Shane Zimenez. O'Shane is gone, man. O'Shane's gone, but Tomon Fox may be a guy to make this roster. Look out for him. He's my number one guy to probably make this roster. I like him a lot. Great pass rush ability. Had his way with Ikem Ekwonu. Ikem Ekwonu had his way with him. Had like 2 sacks versus Ikem Ekwonu. All right, so one of them may not be Ikem's fault. He kind of pushed off and the quarterback ran his direction. But still, I mean, I like this guy. I like his potential. If he had his way versus one of the best tackles in this year's draft and one of the best tackles in the nation in that year, I like the guy automatically. So that being said, I like him a lot. Now, the Giants signed, since making this video, the Giants signed 2 more free agents. That's why I had to put top 15. It was top 13, but now it's 15. And Ryder Anderson, 6'6", out of Indiana, 276 pounds. Don't know anything about him. I can't find tape on him. I can't find even YouTube highlights of him. I can't find anything on this guy. All I know is that he's 6'6", 276. That is freaking huge. So, and what I've seen from him at practice, he looks like a long, lanky, defensive end that has some muscle building on him. So he's probably like one of those athletic prospects the Giants want to work out and probably impressed at the tryouts. And then we have safety Jordan Mosley, 6 foot, 205 pounds, out of Maryland. Maryland knows how to produce some defensive backs, man. So we'll see what happens with him. He's another guy I have no clue of anything about. So we'll see what happens with that. But that being said, guys, that is the 15. I'm sorry I keep making these long videos. I'm sorry, but I'm trying to cover everything as much as I can. That is my 15 undrafted free agents the New York Giants signed so far. Let me know who you guys think will make this roster in the comment section below. My top 5 guys are probably Timon Fox. Let's see, Andre Miller, Jeremiah Hall, Yusuf Corker, and my last one I'll probably pick is I'll say Chris Hinton. That's my top 5 guys that probably make this roster. Who are your top 5 guys? Leave it in the comment section below. Like if you guys enjoyed, subscribe if you guys are new, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Woo!